Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You know when it is Tuesday, it is the Raw Leadership Talk. Here at the Africa Center for Public Speaking, we are more than glad every Tuesday to bring you the Raw Leadership Talk. And today we continue with Dr. Paul Kariuki, looking at a very, very important topic on side hustles, developing workplace discipline. I'm sure he will be unwrapping that more and more. Where are you tuning in from? Talk to us. It'd be great to hear from you. You can begin to tag your friends and call them into this discussion. I can assure you it's going to be hot. It's going to be very, very powerful. And I want you to catch it live right here at the Raw Leadership Talk. For the first time again, we are today streaming live, not only on YouTube and on my Facebook timeline, but also on LinkedIn. And so if you have friends that are maybe not on Facebook, they're not on YouTube, but they're on LinkedIn, you can tell them to tune into my profile, Dan Mugera, and be able to connect to this wonderful, wonderful discussion that we are having today. In the meantime, let's go back home. One of my songs, exhorting people to go back to the reality of balanced life. Where are you watching us from? Dr. Paul.
Yes, sir. I'm winning. I'm blessed, sir. How are you?
Let's roll. How is Durban?
Durban is nice, blessed, filled with goodness, and very hot at the moment. Yes.
Last week we had this wonderful discussion that was very, very great on workplace mentorship and its benefit. And I remember we looked at workplace mentoring. What is its purpose? Why is it important? How does it work? And what really is the role of organizational leadership in as far as workplace mentorship is concerned? And what are the benefits? And we had this wonderful discussion. I will encourage our viewers. You can go and watch. You can go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and be able to watch that discussion. You could also go to Dr. Paul's YouTube channel and subscribe and watch that particular discussion right there. But today we want to go into side hustles. Side hustles. And I want to believe that this is a very, very important topic. But, we've been having a lot of narrative here. Dr. Paul, here in Kenya, we talk about the hustlers movement. I want to make sure that we can put a disclaimer here that this topic is not in any way related to the political movement that is going on in this country. This is a professional leadership talk that you can benefit. Neither is it associated with Azimio or the hustlers movement in any way. It's important to put such a disclaimer in this country, especially in such a time as this. The moment people see the word hustle, they begin to think something else. But what is the impact of COVID-19 on workplace dynamics, Dr. Paul?
Yes, once again, thank you so much, Dan, for having me on the show, and I appreciate that. As we have coined our talk show tonight around the side hustles. One of the things that COVID-19 has done in many ways, especially as far as workplace is concerned, it's taking away people's job security in a sense, as many organizations have been forced to either, cut down or downsize. Some have even been forced to terminate contracts or organize their own work arrangements. People have been involved in one way or another in ways where their incomes have not become, sufficient to meet all their needs. And so there has been this new emerging interest. It has always been there, but I think this COVID-19 has made it even become more pronounced as many people start looking for opportunities that they can supplement incomes. The living costs have also increased, and people's wages have remained almost the same. And if they have been increased with a very small margin that cannot be able to cover the inflationary costs. So people have become even more and more interested in exploring opportunities where they can use their giftings, they can use their talents, they can use their skills to create opportunities for additional incomes to help them do life. And so it has always been there. It's only that now it has become more and more pronounced as COVID-19 continues to affect the world of work.
Mm-hmm. And so, in that regard, then, what is side hustle? In your own understanding, what would you say is a side hustle? Because I guess it's important for our viewers to get to have a grasp of this important word. What really is side hustle?
So I would define a side hustle as an additional work that a person undertakes. They are more passionate about, they are very interested in it, and they're able to do this either as a full-time opportunity or a part-time opportunity to supplement their income that they probably earning at this point in time, or they intend to be earning. So it's really an additional work or a form of employment, self-employment, that an individual is very much passionate about, and they're able to monetize it so that they can be able to earn an extra income.
And so I know there is an importance of that, and we do encourage people to really get something of their own. But it will be important for our viewers really to understand, Dr. Paul, what is the difference between side hustle and moonlighting?
Very important. As we're saying, that side hustle is a form of self-employment where somebody monetizes their passion for an extra income. Moonlighting is exact opposite. It's when an employee or employees take time during their own paid time by their employers to work on something that they think is important for them and offer services to another employer for a reward. So this is where the lines sometimes get blurred. A side hustle is something that somebody does off their official working times, and they're passionate about to create an extra or additional income. Moonlighting is when people work already employed by another employer, and they take up an opportunity to work for another employer during work time or even after work for an additional reward, and is often not disclosed. That's what moonlighting is.
And so we will say moonlighting in plain language is stealing your employer's time.
Exactly.
For something else. And this, I think, amounts to gross indiscipline as far as work ethics are concerned. And I see a lot of people, while they desire to get a job, and also at the same time, they're trying to make something of their own also there, the balance and their ability to walk this thin line of integrity is very difficult for a lot of people. So let's talk about that. How does an employee make sure they are balanced, or they can balance between their workplace discipline and their side hustle discipline?
This is where it becomes very tricky, because a striking of the balance between either of these ways of additional income generation has an impact on a person's strength and availability of their time, but also it has also an impact on their capacities to navigate or oscillate between the two opportunities, whether it's a permanent employment versus an additional income stream, or versus another reward that they want to do, what we're referring here as moonlighting. So the balancing act is always a very tricky one, because if it's a side hustle, it means that this person is working after hours, which there's a highly likelihood that they don't even get enough time to rest between the
Yes.
time they left off work and the following day when they need to report to work, versus a moonlighting where somebody takes risks to use an existing employer's time for another reward by offering services, almost probably competitive services to another employer for a reward. And so it becomes very difficult, because on one hand, if it's a side hustle, it's an issue of use of extra energy, extra time, and very little time to rest from, be able to function the following day or whenever time they report, versus
Yes.
moonlighting where it's like a duck and diving situation. Somebody's trying to do something, hopefully that they're not going to be caught, using an existing employer's time to earn an extra reward. And so either of them, one has to be very cautious in terms of how they manage their time, two, their energies, and three, on how they work on the line of integrity. Because either way, if one is employed, needs to be able to disclose that to an employer, whether they're doing the side hustle thing or they are doing, of course, it would be very courageous for somebody to say I'm moonlighting. Of course, the instant reaction of an employer is to fire that person immediately. But there has to be a way of disclosure so that the employer is aware that my member of staff is involved in something that is actually depleting their energy, and even though it's earning them an extra income, there has to be a way of managing how either of these opportunities are being handled.
You think that is possible for employees to disclose their side hustle? I guess most people will have that attitude, Dr. Paul, that this has nothing to do with my employer. It has nothing to do with the organization. As long as I'm able to give you my time and do what I'm supposed to do here at the organization, you don't need to know about what I do outside there. It's none of your business. How do you be able to balance between that aspect of employers not being able to really communicate this, or in the event that they are not able to communicate this?
It really depends on the organizational culture. As we discussed last week, it's a very, very important aspect on how it influences the employer-employee relationships. And in most often, where relationships between the employer and employees are healthy, there is openness and there is transparency. These kind of things do get discussed. So it's not really an unusual situation where employees come to the employer and say, "Hey, I'm being involved in this and this and the other, and this thing is generating income for me at this level. This is when I do this work, and this is what I do, and I feel strong about it. Can we discuss about it?" Where there is no healthy relationship between employer and employee, then the default is to hide. And now the problem with that is that if there is an organizational policy around disclosure, then the employee is in a back foot if he's found, because
Okay.
then whatever punitive measures that the policy of the organization describes, then it means that that individual has to be held accountable for non-disclosure, and secondly for dishonesty, and of course thirdly for disloyalty. But if we assume that there is a healthy organizational culture, then there is a possibility for conversation of what needs to be done, and then it is managed per person, not as a full blank kind of directive to the entire organization to tell everyone you can now start doing your side hustles or whatever the case may be. So where there is an openness, where, for example, an employee comes to the employer and says, "I've been able to monetize my gift, and my talents, and this is what I do after hours." So when you see me in the following morning and I look tired, it's because I'm doing this and that. And then you have an engagement about how do we manage this. I believe any progressive employer would want to encourage their staff member to really, be able to do what they want to do with their talent and their gifting, because that's a natural gift from God. You cannot control a person to do that. But if it's in a work situation, then that becomes your employer's business, because then no employer want to work with a person who is already tired by the following day, and you're not tired because of the work of the organization. You're tired because of your own work. So it becomes very tricky. So an honest conversation will help to draw boundaries. When should this happen? How often should this happen? And what is the implication on the relationship between the employer and the employee? So, and there are ways of managing that. And in an organization where there is a policy around disclosure, for example, if the organization's policy says if you're monetizing your gift or your skills or your talents, these are the steps you need to follow. A, inform the management. B, engage the management to come up with a formula of how that side hustling is enabled. C, out of your incomes, maybe percentage X needs to come to the organization, especially if the skills that are being monetized have been earned through the organization's experience. Then the organization can have a right to say a certain percentage or the income that you generated per month needs to come back to the organization. So, and there is a way how these things can be managed. If it's moonlighting, then that's a bit severe, because there's no employer will be very kind to hear that you're actually using their time and their assets to actually work for another organization or another employer for a reward. So in most organizations that I'm aware of where these kinds of policies do exist, moonlighting is not accepted. It always draws disciplinary action when it's found out, because normally employees by nature will not want to disclose when they're moonlighting, and so therefore it's a completely different from a side hustle.
Wonderful. And is there a role of organizational leaders? I think it would be wonderful for us to discuss about what's really the role of organizational leaders as far as side hustling and that discipline at the workplace is concerned. If you're joining us right now, we're discussing the side hustle, the role, how to develop workplace discipline with Dr. Paul Kariuki right now, which is a very wonderful topic, especially now that most people, almost everyone, has a side hustle, or most people even who don't have a side hustle do desire to have a side hustle of some kind in helping them generating income apart from the one that they're getting at their workplace. Dr. Paul, the role of organizational leaders.
So that's very important, I think, to bring it to a full circle. We've just spoken about the role of employee in a sense, which is primarily two things. One is to disclose, and secondly is to engage the employer. Now, the leader's role in this case is to create three things. One is to create an organizational culture that allows transparency and honesty, because it all raises and falls on leadership. If the leadership is not able to create that an environment, then it creates an appetite to do things that are not consistent with the organizational values. So that's the first task of leadership, to create an organizational culture that allows openness and discussions. And then secondly, the role of leadership is to communicate the company values and policies around these issues. Because now with COVID-19, we will never go back to the default where people used to stick with a salary. Majority people, because of what the COVID-19 did on their incomes, have now started exploring other areas of their giftings and talents and skills, and they're becoming more and more creative and innovative in trying to monetize them. So you, as an employer, you want to be in a situation where your staff members can be able to discuss these things openly without feeling there is a fear for punishment or even termination of employment. So where the organizational culture is healthy, it's important to engage with your staff and be able to create an opportunity for them to understand where the company policies do speak on these issues, where are their boundaries, what should an employee do, and what are also the consequences of not observing company policy. That's the task of leadership. And the third thing, of course, is to create, if one has agreed with an employee that you're going to allow them to do their side hustle, be very clear what impact it will have on both the organization and on the employee. In most cases, sometimes on the employee, because of the urge to go out there and monetize their services and things, most often they don't think about the impact on their health. Remember, their bodies needs to to rest, to rejuvenate, for them to be able to be productive. And some of these issues, we find them getting even into mental health issues, where they're trying to balance between the various aspects of their life, and creating a balance becomes a challenge. So if there is work demands that eat into their time for side hustling, you discover now the challenge they start affecting somebody, in the sense that they either start disconnecting with the organization, yet they want to draw a check from the organization, or vice versa. They become so much absorbed with their side hustle, they actually even forget to look after their own lives. And so those kind of conversations are very important in terms of negotiating what it really looks like to be given permission to do that side hustling, and then they enter into some form of agreement. How will it work? What will it look like? And what are the opportunities of accountability on an ongoing basis between the employer and the employee?
Wonderful thoughts right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we have looked so far on the impact of COVID-19 on workplace dynamics, definition of side hustle, the difference between side hustles and moonlighting, and how are employees expected to handle side hustling, and the role of organizational leaders. I want to believe that you're enjoying this. Bernardine Mundui, thank you very much. You're saying you're tuned in from Mombasa, Kenya. Thank you very much for watching. And we want to bring this to a close. Dr. Paul, what will be your parting shot on matters side hustle at the workplace?
I would like to say that it's very important for people to explore their abilities and their skills and talents, and find ways they can be able to, monetize them, so that they can create a future they desire. However, this needs to be done in an environment where there is mutual respect and honesty and transparency, especially if one is employed, because there is obligations that need to be met, and there is already an existing relationship that needs to be observed and respected. And so if one is able to engage with their employer and be able to disclose, this is also very important, so that there is a form of agreement, and one doesn't have to do a side hustle hiding, or or creating a situation where it comes across as if one is being disloyal to an employer. And thirdly, of course, is continuously thinking about balancing life. Either extreme can be detrimental, and especially if it starts affecting one's health. It's very important to put that in mind, that balance is very important in everything. And even while you're chasing, your next check or extra checks, understand that it can also be costly. You can be spending all that money that you're earning to fix your health. And so it's important to create that balance, so that you don't get into a situation where you become now a problem to be solved.
Thank you. Wonderful thoughts right there. And I want to believe that our viewers now, and those who are going to watch this even after this live broadcast, you are going to learn great lessons from this talk today. Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Role Leadership Talk, and may God bless you very much.
Thank you very much.